Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday. If you have not done so already, please go to wherever you're listening or watching today's episode, hit subscribe, and please leave us a review. Reviews really are the fuel that help grow this show, help get us more monumental listeners to help hear and learn from our amazing, amazing guests that we have on the show. And speaking of which, Jonathan, great to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Evan. And I just want to say to your audience, I'm excited. Thank you guys for having me. And I hope that we can add an immense amount of insight to your life today. And this is going to be a fun interview, so keep it locked.
Yes, I cannot wait, guys. Jonathan Frederick, he had me on his show recently, his Heart Healthy Hustle show, and really just had a blast with him. So if you have not listened to that, go over to his podcast, check that out. But a little bit about Jonathan before we get started. He's 28-year-old podcasting professional. He is a curious student of life, hosting his very own top-ranked podcast show, the Heart Healthy Hustle Show, with the goal to equip and encourage his fellow proactive young professionals. And guys, he has had on some pretty amazing guests on his show, including Ed Milet, Cole Hatter, and Patrick Bet-David. That's amazing, man. And then you just told me right before you had on Joe DeSena, who is the founder of the Spartan Race. So that's pretty amazing, man. I can't wait to dive into how you're getting some of these top level guests. Yeah, there it is. If you're watching video, he just showed his
if you've ever run a Spartan race, you know this. You just get this for completing. This isn't a ranking. This is just for finishing, bro.
This is like a pat on the back. I love it.
Yeah, pretty much. But I took it with pride, man. I earned that thing. Yeah.
I love it. Well, let's just dive right in, man. Let's kind of give the listeners a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So again, like you said, the intro, that's pretty all encompassing. I went to college for, I'll just start way back. Cut me off if I'm going for too long, which, it tends to happen with monologuing on podcasts myself. But I'm excited to be here, man. I just want to say what you're doing is awesome. And it's great to, do that collaborative, like, you're great, but like, you're a really genuine guy. And after hosting you on my show, I was kind of blown away by your vulnerability or transparency and just the authenticity and intention behind what you're doing, not just with Monumental, but in your professional life. So I'm very honored to be on your show.
I appreciate that, man.
Oh, for sure. I really mean it too. So, my story is not all that unique. I grew up homeschooled until 8th grade. After that, I went to a private Christian high school for 2 years, got suspended multiple times because I just was kind of itching for attention. I was a middle child, was coming out of my shell. The last 2 years I ended high school in a public school. And so I was this kid that always dealt with a lot of rejection. Also I had a lot of connections, but I never had like that deep crew, that inner circle of like, yeah, you really belong. You're just always, I was accepted for the most part, but never had that inner crew, I guess you could say. And that's kind of what spawned the desire to help other people connect and find mutual long-term friendships and connections. And, friendships are seasonal, but it's always nice to know you have that home base, right? And that's something that's lacking in today's society. But my story, after that, I went to college for exercise science pre-professional. Some people call it kinesiology. I was pre-physical therapy. You're like, pre-professional, what does that mean? So pre-physical therapy, I took a bunch of pre-med classes. My classmates for the first 2-3 years were all nursing students, biology, all these people going on to be doctors and stuff. So my background is in health and wellness, and medical terminology is not extensive, but it is there. And so after that, I graduated. I worked at a chiropractic wellness center. Got really into the holistic side of health. I was still desiring to possibly go back to physical therapy school because I didn't get in. And my GPA wasn't high enough. I didn't prioritize academics enough in college. So after I worked for a year at this chiropractic wellness center, my desire to be in the healthcare industry dwindled just by seeing, the actual to effectually increase change and innovation in the healthcare industry is there's more than bureaucracy. There's like warfare, basically. I mean, to innovate the healthcare industry would be possible. It's possible, but it's not something I wanted to put on my shoulders for my lifetime. And I decided to kind of move forward from that. I still have passion for health, though. Hence the show, Heart Healthy Hustle. And I try to live a healthy life, even though last night I was watching YouTube eating peanut M&Ms. Not gonna lie. It happens. So just try not to judge myself. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I'm just humbled to be where I'm at now and just getting started, man. I feel like I'm missing a little bit of a gap there. So after I was working there, I got into sales. Sales intercepted me because my personality, people I was becoming friends with in the community reached out to me, said, hey, we got this position for you. You can make twice as much as you're making right now as the rehab. I was a spinal rehab specialist, a medical x-ray technician, all this, but they're like, you can make twice as much. You got a great personality. You care about people. I said, hey, I'm gonna give this a shot. So I intercepted it, did both at the same time for about a month and a half, quickly saw the money coming in and said, all right, peace out to the, much love, but peace to the healthcare thing. And then since then I've been in sales and now I work full time in software sales. I love it. I love who I work with. I love the company and I'm passionate about that, but I also have my true missional purpose. I live missionally driven life and that's why I do the podcast. So it kind of hopefully brings everyone up to speed with myself up to today.
And at what point did you decide to start the podcast?
It's 2015, man. I was in this is a crazy story too, guys. This is kind of a life hack, by the way, for anyone who's not making the money yet. I moved to Raleigh-Durham area, North Carolina in 2015. I was in a relationship at the time, long-term, like 4 years plus. And I was looking for opportunity because I grew up in Southern New Jersey, which if you're from that area, you kind of know there are opportunities, but it's kind of hit or miss. And I wasn't really excited about living there for my whole life. Much love to the area, still got passion for it. Go Eagles. But at the end of the day, I needed to get out to where there's a lot of talent, a lot of development. And that's Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle, American Underground, entrepreneurs, startups, tech, all this stuff down here. You got Lenovo, SAS, all these companies like within a 10-mile radius. It's ridiculous. So I say, hey, I'm going to come here. Finally got in this past year at one of the tech companies, but I moved down here. I lived it wasn't a legal room. It was an office it was a side room off of the kitchen as a roommate in a house of like 4 people. And it wasn't even a legal bedroom. It was literally 10 foot by 9 foot. It was lopsided, and I took a picture of it before I moved out of there because I was in there for about a year. And dude, I just got to say, if you got the hustle and the drive, you do what it takes to make things happen. But I was, a lot's changed since then. I was very scarcity driven mindset in terms of finances, but I also was making it work for what I had to deal with. But, looking back on that, I don't miss that. It almost kind of breaks my heart, but it's very endearing to know your background and to know the hustle that you have and the drive to make things happen. I'm proud of that.
So going into the podcast, did that idea come out when you moved to Raleigh-Durham?
Yeah. So I moved here and I was doing the healthcare job for the first year I was here. And while I was doing that, I was becoming very entrepreneurial. I started a YouTube channel based around health, wellness, and fitness. Don't look it up, but it's called Frederick Fit if you want to laugh at me. I made over 200 plus videos. I was growing the subscriber count. Didn't see fast enough growth, so I gave it up eventually because I felt like my motivations weren't on point with where I wanted to head with the direction. But yeah, the podcast came from that. I was really exploring. It was 2015, actually. I didn't launch until 2018, if that gives you any clue of the fear to start executing is real. And I don't consider myself a fearful person, but it took me 3 years to launch it from conception. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And then now, I mean, look at it. Look at what it's become, right? I mean, how many episodes have you done so far?
Just launched 130. Yours truly, or you, not yours truly, but you, bro. You were the 130th episode. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So 130 episodes in the bank, some amazing, amazing stories that you've been able to share. And to think that it took 3 years to get that launched.
And what's funny is it really took 6 months from me deciding, because conception, the name of the show, all that came in 2015, or I'm sorry, 2016. And then it took 2.5 to 3 years until I actually launched it. I launched June 2018 of last year. So
What was that holdup?
dude, I was afraid that I was going to make a mistake. I was afraid that I was going to say the wrong thing, not for my own ego, but from like a spiritual sense. I was afraid of putting myself out there. I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of the repercussions of stepping out as a leader. And it's been real. I mean, in the sense of those fears were very much almost realized, but I also realized that I don't care and I'm going to plow through anyway, kind of like a train going down a track with that splitter. It pushes cows off of the rail. That's haters, bro. Or people who just like, who are you to speak up? I'm like, I'm going to speak up because the next generation of leaders is here and it needs to speak up. So that's the thing is like, I also recognize I'm a student though. I'm not just coming at this like, yo, I'm a 20 something expert.
Yeah.
You need to pay me, listen to me. I'm the guy. Like, you know what? I'm the conduit. And it's okay to be the guy in podcasting or whatever area I'm an actual expert at. But again, for the cynical listener right now who's in their 50s, they're like, this kid's a joke. I'm like, hey, actually, I'm not even claiming to be the expert. I'm claiming to be the guy that's going to bring the expert, Patrick Bet-David, over $1 billion company, Iranian immigrant, channel his expertise to you directly through my podcast, kind of like you're doing with Monumental.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And honestly, I think, so many people are probably either currently in or have been in that same situation that you were in. And we're like, hey, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't want to put myself out there. Like all of these games that you're playing with yourself about podcasting, and you're a lot of times just really overthinking it,
Exactly.
and not necessarily thinking about the end product and the end impact that
The
you're going
people
to
you need
have
to
on.
help.
Exactly.
Yo, that's just to touch on that. Once you do start, you realize all those things that you may have been afraid of, it's not about you. Nobody cares. That's the end of the day. No one cares that you have a podcast. We both have successful podcasts who we've hosted billions of dollars worth of business people at this point. Nobody actually cares. People may listen and get benefited from it. So I'm not saying that they don't care. It matters to them. I care about my audience very much, I'm sure, as you do for your audience. And my point is, once you start acting on all this stuff that you thought was such a big deal because you played it up, pedestaled in your own mind, you realize that there are players out there who would look at that and say, okay, buddy, one day you'll get to realize that that wasn't even a big deal. Just keep taking action. And you start to kind of come awake to this realization that all this stuff you thought was such a big deal and scary, and it really is not. You just take more action faster.
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. So I want to dive into that more. Going into, what advice do you have to somebody out there that's like, hey, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know where to start?
Hire me to be your consultant. $10,000 for getting your show off the ground.
There you go.
Outside of that, though, no. But honestly, it's not as hard as you think, and every single day, it becomes easier and easier every day. I mean, there's an app called Anchor now. It's free. It publishes to the major platforms for you. Definitely look into that and just start. Stop being fancy. Don't worry about a $100,000 mic. Don't worry about any of that. I still use a $68 mic. It doesn't take much. You just need your phone now. You can record quality audio on your iPhone. There's very low barrier. The main thing is handling all the moving parts. That can be a bit challenging, but it comes with time. And once you get started, you realize, hey, I can do this. This isn't that bad. And if there's an area where you're having trouble, you can reach out to others for help. And people are genuinely very kind when you seek real help.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I tell people the same thing. I'm like, I use the same mic that I used when I got started a year and a half ago. It's $100 mic. I'm using a $30 webcam. It really doesn't take much. It's just making that decision and following through on that decision. That's the biggest part, is once you make that decision, you commit to it and you say, hey, this is going to be my target. I'm going to get, a certain number of episodes done, and then I'm going to launch. And, I'm not going to be attached to the results. I'm going to be attached to producing.
Mm. I'm with you, man.
I love it. So going back to, you said really creating community was important to you. And I also noticed just in the last couple minutes we've talking about your story, you've mentioned heart and healthy and hustle in different sentences, different places. Like, it's almost become part of your mantra. And so I want to dive into like why that was important to create a podcast about that and build a community around that.
Absolutely. The main dude, I'll tell you guys a story. When I was like 12, I believe I was 12. I was pre-middle school into middle school age. My father's parents, so my pop and my grandma Connie from North Jersey, started declining in health, and I wasn't traumatically affected or anything, but I watched as my pop was only in his 70s, was dealing with a legally blind eye. His diabetes was starting to keep him from being able to walk effectively. He had a walker. Strong dude, used to be able to like shoulder press my dad and his friends as kids into the ceiling, like 300-pound plus beast. And here he is, like declining in health. And watching that happen and seeing him in a nursing home and visiting him in the nursing home, loved him to death. He was also a very generous man. But seeing that from a young age, I knew I would not have diabetes. I would not allow that kind of disease to come into my life. And I would break that from happening, into the future. And I also watched his wife, my grandma Connie, suffer with, she had an aneurysm back in, you can't control that really, but she had that happen years ago, like years before I was even born. And she survived, she was fine. But then she had a minor stroke, and before the stroke, she had Alzheimer's. Watching someone with Alzheimer's/dementia is kind of endearing because they become very dependent and curious and funny and almost childlike. But it was sad, to see that. She lived with us at the house for a little while, and then she went to a nursing home as well after having a stroke. She became, for lack of better words, bedridden and incoherent, and she could kind of, had like the puckered lip thing and, like the staring off into the space look on her face with like a weird swaying motion in her hands. And like when she would try to communicate, that's all you got. And she was on a feeding tube, of course. So seeing that decline was, it affected me. And then my pop-up was there by her side, and then he passed after she did. And the other side of it, my mom's mom got dementia. And she's also passed now. But seeing these health issues at an age where I was very impressionable showed me that everyone almost is affected or touched by a disease or health issues in some capacity. Sometimes it's part of life. Sometimes it's by our own decisions. Largely what I saw was due to just life happening. It wasn't really outside of diabetes with my grandfather. Most of this wasn't by personal choice, of course. So, it's just something that I saw and I said, this is tragic. And I didn't blame anyone or anything. I really just said, if there's anything I can do to prevent something like that from happening in my future, I will. And that's where my passion for health came in. I started getting into more exercise, and nothing crazy. Like, I love to say I became like this insane athlete who could do one hand push-up handstand things and ate perfectly healthy, but it's not the case. I just became conscious of my health at a younger age, which is a huge advantage. Grew up kind of frugal and, not rich or anything. So we ate pretty well, but also very, like, there wasn't extra snacks really to go around. Dessert was regimented and, stuff like that. It just wasn't an issue. My mom wasn't throwing, bags of chips at me. It was quite the opposite. So I was always playing outside. So health from a young age is just, it's been something that I really value and I honor.
And now you're creating community around it, and you're creating a platform for, those that are have that heart healthy hustle mindset, and sharing their stories to help others live that path too.
Yeah. The other side of it is the entrepreneurial side, which kicked in. My family is largely entrepreneurial. Um, Shout out to Fred. He was a florist in like Atlantic City area. And I became entrepreneurial after college, after seeing you can make your own way and all this. I was like, man, I want to tap into this. So became very curious, learned a lot, read a lot of books, watched all the YouTube videos, not all of them, but just kind of became aware that you can do things and it can work and you can make a viable living, and watched friends create successful businesses where, you know, they're they're doing very well. And I'm not talking no disrespect if you're in an MLM or something, but I'm talking about hardcore down home small businesses that have scaled, people providing a service for funds in exchange, old school invoice, like that kind of business. I've seen it happen. I've seen it succeed massively, and I know it's possible. So once I realized that you can burn out real quick in that space, I realized, hey, I'm going to tie health together with this, but not only health, heart healthy. So the spiritual, like the heart, that matters, because the why behind your actual health is what's going to sustain you when, even though you've done everything you can to remain healthy, you drink the green juice, you sleep, you get up early, you work out, you're still burning out, burning both ends of the candle, and you realize, what's my why? And you can go back to that, and it goes a lot deeper too, but that's really the heart behind all of it.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And you're exactly right. Like it's the whole mindset of saying, hey, if you can have a successful business, but you're not there spiritually, you're not there health wise, then what's it all for? What's the point, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned your why. I mean, behind everything, behind every big mission is a big why. And we talked about that quite a bit on your show, which I loved getting into, because I'm really passionate about helping people figure out their why. And I feel like that is literally like the biggest motivator you can have, is if you get crystal clear on your why. So what could you share a little about kind of your why, or how that's related to what you're doing?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Great question. I'm at the core level, I'm a Christian. So again, hopefully I don't lose any listeners here. And for those listening who are Christians, they're like, oh, wow, I love this guy. I'm not going to shy away from it, because I realize there's a lot of us out there. We're actually the majority. So you don't have to be afraid to share it if you are. But here's the thing. I'm the last person to pretend I'm perfect, right? I'm a hypocrite every day with what I say I believe. So that's what's a challenge. When you claim something and you own it and you say, this is me, this is what I believe, these are my values, it's really hard no matter what you say you believe, because then if you're not congruent with that, people are like, oh, screw this hypocrite immediately. It's so easy to jump on people like wild rabid dogs. People love to do that. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. Here's the thing. I try to precursor that with like, I'm my harshest critic. So I beat you to it. Anyway, that's my deepest why, is I'm a man of God. So I believe that if I don't live up to the absolute fullest potential that he's gifted, or the gifts that he's given to me, however blessed I am to have whatever kind of gifts that may be, if I don't do everything I can to try to realize those and then leverage them to help and bless other people, that I'm not being a good example. And I'm not going to help people generate curiosity about that faith. They're going to be like, oh, he's a loser, or what do I have to learn from him? He's not very generous. He's not very helpful. He's not kind. So that's something I've been dealing with, honestly, is how to share my mission, share the mission behind what I do in a way that is from love and kindness, because otherwise nobody cares. It's that saying, people don't care about what you know until they know about how much you care. What's amazing is at the core level, I'm a big muscular guy. I'm 6'3". I have beard and I run Spartan races and I like lifting weights, but I grew up like the softest, shyest, compassionate kid that like pets animals and puts my arm around my little sister at 2 years old and tries to read to her. She slaps me and I'm like, no, come back. So like, that's who I am at the core level still, is that really sweet guy. It just doesn't quite show on my exterior anymore. And I went through a really weird season after college time where I was so sick and fed up of being, like, in my perception, I was being walked on a lot. So I was like, all right, like, I'm sick of being small. I'm sick of being picked on. I'm sick of being quiet. I'm going to step up, show up. So I kind of channeled the boldness behind some of that to a positive way versus being like, oh, I'm going to show them. Like, I don't need to prove myself to anyone anymore, which is great. Validation is awesome. I love hearing it, but it's not something I really am seeking out because it's so empty. Because if you accept people's validation, you're also going to accept their rejection, which is why I'm rooted in, God versus man's praise, which is going over even my own head at this point. But you asked, so.
No, that's amazing, man. I love that. And honestly, I think that's rooted in a lot of what I do as well, is that, if you have a sense of like, hey, I have a big purpose and I'm meant to do a lot. And if you realize that everybody has that ability and you're wired with that in you, it's just about finding what is your purpose and what are the tools that are going to get you there, and helping impact other people. Cause that's really what it's all about, is really just helping other people. And that's literally the most fulfilling thing that anybody can do.
It's very fulfilling.
And honestly, I mean,
Yeah,
you've
I'm
shown
gonna
that.
pause this. I also think, and this is something it's hard for people like us to do. It is for me. If you're listening and you're the kind of person who's the entrepreneur, the guy, the buck stops with you, the girl, whatever you're doing, it's hard for us to accept that help. We want to be the one to give it. We're like, I'm going to add value to you. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but what if they had something to offer you and you just weren't ready or able to receive it? And that is where I'm trying to become obsessed with collaboration and obsessed with, if not more so, receiving, not taking, receiving help versus just being like, no, I'm going to give this to you whether you want it or not. I'm going to add value. That's actually not a positive thing. Adding too much value is kind of, you could be cursing yourself from developing healthy relationships if you're adding too much value that people didn't ask for. And I had to learn that the hard way after college. I was like, oh, you should drink this green smoothie. People are like, shut up, you're eating chips. And I was like, yeah, but most of the time I'm healthy, so you should listen to me. And that's my family. They all can't stand my health habits because I am really fit and healthy. And they're just, when I go home and see them or I visit for, I'm eating what I want. So they're like, how does he do it? It's so annoying. Versus like, oh, sometimes people will come to me, ask questions. But anyway.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And we had David Meltzer on
Yeah.
the podcast a while ago, and he said a very similar thing. It's just about that, circular motion, like that cyclical motion of, give and you shall receive. And also even more so, like when somebody offers to give, make sure you are actually receiving, because exactly what you're saying, like honestly adds a lot of value to whoever's giving as well. So in turn, you are adding value to them by being able to receive whatever it is that they're giving to you. And that sounds like a tongue twister, but I promise it makes sense if you live it out.
Love it, man. Yeah, it's great.
So going into, I love how you put on everything, and just so you guys know, after Jonathan had me on his show, he sent me a card like, I don't know, 2 days later or something. I got it in the mail a couple days later, and I thought that was so awesome because he not only wrote me a card, but it was like very personalized. It was very like exactly what we talked about, and really made me feel happy and welcomed by Jonathan. But he put at the end, I wanted to point this out because I wanted to get your take on it. He signed it by saying, "Live wide open."
Yeah.
So I want to dive into that. What does that mean to you?
In short, so depression and like suicide and stuff is something that people are like, wait, what? So the reason I say that, in 2018, at the end of the year, I lost a friend to suicide. Hello, are you there?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, my screen just went black for a second. I lost a good friend of mine, actually named Jonathan, who killed himself, and it was the end of 2018. And what hit me after that, it was a lot of guilt. I was like, why didn't I do more? Why didn't I fly out to, I'm on the East Coast, but he was on the West. I was like, why didn't I fly out when he was struggling? Did I not listen? Why didn't I share more with him about the hope that I have in the faith and everything? Because I really believe what's going to happen in the afterlife and everything. So I felt so bad that I didn't do that. And then I realized like, I can't blame myself. I was sitting in my car, kind of, devastated, and I was crying and also trying to talk to God. I was frustrated. Like, what did I do wrong? And at that moment, a song came on, and I can't remember the name of the song, but at the end of it, there's this repeated phrase, and it just says, "I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open." And I realized, whoa, I need to not only go through my journey with a lot of intention, but I need to be wide open about my why, what I believe, um, wide open on the throttle, right? I have a need for speed, but that really hit me, man. It was like, dude, you could have been more open and shared more hope with him, and you didn't. And I don't say that for anyone else who's dealt with this to feel guilty or feel like it was your fault at all. It wasn't. So just forgive that and let it go. But and also, it's not about you, right? But at the end of the day, I was left with that question: like, could I have done more? I was a friend. He was reaching out to me. I was answering his.
Right.
I was there. I told him I was there. He never, he didn't realize, like, but that's where that live wide open came from, because after I heard the wide open part, I was like, all right, how do I, and immediately it hit me. It was like some people will say things like spiritual downloads, but it was directly from God, and it was, you need to live wide open. And that became the tagline for the Heart Healthy Hustle and for my life at that
Yeah,
point on.
that's powerful, man. And that's honestly, that is very aligned with what you're saying of like, you want to live wide open in everything you're doing and
Yeah.
sharing in everything that you're doing. And that's exactly, what you're doing with that mantra that you've added into the Heart Healthy Hustle.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And that honestly, that probably um, flows into, some of the amazing guests that you're getting too. I mean,
Mm.
they see that, they see your passion, they see you're living wide open, and they're attracted, they're drawn to that.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like, going into the guest thing is you have to genuinely ask for help from a lot of people who are way ahead of you. And then people are like, oh, they're humble enough to recognize that they're 20,000 levels below me and they want my help. So yeah, let's do a podcast interview. You know what I mean? Versus, like, it's tricky though, because then anyway, we'll get into that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive into it. What is that like? I've kind of found a few things that work for me, but I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your
Well,
perspective.
what's worked for you, man? I want to hear yours.
All right, let's turn the tables. Really, for me, it has been two things. I
Uh-huh.
boil it down to two things of how we get top level guests on Monumental is Instagram DM.
Yeah.
You have to have a social presence to begin with, but then having that ability to be able to connect with somebody and message people and know that
Yeah.
it's a numbers game too, because 9 times out of 10 people aren't going to respond. um,
Yeah. True.
and the other part is in person.
Okay.
Like what you and I met at Summit of Greatness, Lewis Howes conference. It's
Yeah.
putting yourself in front of the people, and you can meet them in person, make that physical connection there, um, and then it makes it a whole lot easier to make the ask. Like this past weekend, met with Cole Hatter, and
Nice.
so we'll have him on the show now because I met him at a multifamily conference.
Wow.
Um, so it's making connections like those in person. So I'd say Instagram and in person, putting yourself in the right place on both fronts.
Cool.
So how about
Yeah.
you, man? I want to hear. Lay it on us.
Well, first you get yourself a pair of glasses. Okay. And then you reach out, and that's it.
That's it.
It's not rocket science. Honestly, it's just reaching out. A lot of people, like you said, most of the people say no. Barely 10% conversion, I'd say.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will answer though. Oh, not the right time, whatever. I'm in sales and I love sales. And this is the thing. What's sick about sales professionals is if you reject me in a mean way or in a way that's like dismissive or condescending, I will get everyone in your circle to come on my show and make you feel like an idiot for not coming on when you had the chance before. And then they're like, oh, wait, like, I'm not going to remind you. I'm not going to tell you I reached out like 2 years ago. I'm going to wait And that's the thing. Like people think, oh, you're so nice. Like, no, I'm not a nice guy. Like I'm doing this for business. I'm doing this to help people. There's intent behind it. And not every guest I reach out to, I'm like, oh, I'm going to show you. That's not the case at all. So don't get it twisted. But I am going to say with sales, it does help to have that mindset of I'm going to get your neighbor. And it's going to help them. They're going to like it. I'm going to serve them. And I'm going to, channel that to my audience. I got to calm down a little bit. I get really passionate about this. But rejection to me is such a test. It's like, all right, how bad do you really want it? And it's never personal. They don't know you. So get over yourself, right? Like, just go for it. And when you get a no, it means not right now, or maybe never. Yeah. And a lot of people, oh, how do I add value to Ed Milet? You don't. Like, relax. Ed doesn't need your value. He's got so much. Just allow him to contribute to your life and smile and say thank you. And he'll take that as value at the point that he's at in life. So many people are, kind of overly neurotic about how do I add value to someone. Like, I'm the same way. I still fall into it. Like, I sent Ed a book after our interview, never heard back on it. But based on our interview, it was a very specific book. And I'm sure he got it. I just don't think that he had the time to say anything back, which I don't mind. I don't need a thank you. I don't need I wanted to know if he got it. That's the truth.
Ed, if you're listening, did you get it?
Yeah.
Well, what is your most
highest conversion?
Yeah. What is the platform that you use the most?
Okay. So in the beginning, it was email. I reach out very specific email script, and I'll customize the top part of it for whoever I'm reaching out to. Makes life simpler. You need systems. Just go. Volume and intentional people who I want to connect with. So there has to be some reciprocity of, I really like this guy's mission. I really resonate with that. Because if you don't resonate with it, your invite's not going to be as sincere. It's not going to have that gut punch of like, this could be a great thing. So that's the first thing. You have to genuinely believe 100% that who you're inviting will be a great fit for your show. Yeah. That really matters. 2 is Instagram DMs, but it's not just DMs. It's usually DMs of, hey, I interviewed your friend so-and-so. I know you're a busy man. Wanted to reach out. I set up an interview. If interested, let's arrange an appropriate time together. So it's quick, it's to the point. It respects their time. It's professional. And it's telling them, I would love to learn from you. And if interested, what's your email? And kind of go from there.
Yeah.
That's probably it, man, I would say. And then for the big ones, it is the resonation. It has to be the right time, has to hit them in the right way. And you have to know how to leverage what you're working with. So if you're real skinny, don't wear skinny jeans. Like, get some husky jeans so it looks like you got a little more meat on the bone. You don't have to lie, but you have to make it sure that there's going to be value. And you maybe push the limit a little bit. Don't sound stupid, but if you've had your podcast played in 40 countries, say that. Even if it was only one download in Siberia, say that it's been 40 countries, because it has. It may sound a lot more international than it really is, but hey, that download came through, so I'm saying it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Honestly, I mean, it's like one step below, fake it till you make it. It's like just use the assets that you have and be able to take that and use that for the cause of really getting them on the show so that they can add value and you can add value to them. I mean, that's the other thing too, is like some of the top level guests that we've had on, they want to come back on because
awesome.
they saw the value.
That says a lot about your show.
Yeah. And
that's rare.
That is what the ultimate goal is that, it's mutually beneficial where they get a lot out of it, even if they are a high level guest.
It's the long game too. Yeah. People are like, oh, once I get the guest, I did it. And that was my mentality and still is a little bit. Yeah. But take a step back, realize you're going to see this guy next year. Are you going to be alive? Like, it's not done. This doesn't mean anything. Like, you're just getting started. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. In building those relationships too. I mean, some of the people we've had on the show, I'm still staying in contact with, or at least, once in a while, connect with through social media or whatever it is. Like, it's just building the start of a new relationship, that you are in turn not only helping your listeners, but you're building your network of highly successful people.
Yeah, and it really is that. It's cool too. They say I think success like happens as you're still running or whatever. However, you know what I mean? Like you wake up one day and look around, you realize, wow, I made a lot of progress. But like, let's keep plowing, let's keep sowing. You don't look at it like I arrived. That's the thing about
Yeah.
winning or success in any arena. It's never an arrival. It's literally maintenance, which is horrible when you first realize it. But then it's freeing because you can make decisions based on the fact that it is maintenance. You feel me?
Yeah. I love that, man.
Same with
Um,
fitness.
so the I love that we're diving into the guests because I feel like that there are people listening. I've had people reach out to me say, "Hey, you inspired us to start a podcast." Well,
Mm,
hopefully, this episode, what we're talking about here, building community, getting clear on why you're doing your podcast, getting
yeah.
clear on the mission and the vision of the podcast itself. It's basically a business,
Mm.
and if you want to be serious about it, you can take it that far, and then the next level of growing that podcast is getting those top level guests on, and your influence will just grow tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that we're diving into this, and we've had some awesome talk about your story and your journey. So let's dive into the monumental questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. What does success mean to you?
The noble pursuit of a worthy goal. I forget who said it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I think,
Uh,
yeah, that's my answer.
that's it. I love it. Um, so what about daily habits or morning ritual?
Man, you're getting me here, man. I haven't been on my game recently, but I just picked it up today. I hit a workout before this interview, so I was getting jazzed up, getting my energy up, everything
Nice.
like that. Yeah, man. So I would say wake up. I do have habits. I immediately make my bed. Then I chug about half to a whole liter of purified filtered water. Then I will take on an empty stomach this nootropic, which I just started doing, which is actually from Lewis's event. He put the trial in our bag, so
Yeah.
I got 90 capsules. I just take one a day typically before any other foods in my stomach. Just because I think if it is going to help, it may help. If not, whatever, I wasted money, but I think it helps a little. Then I'll jump into brewing the coffee if I have time. If not, I'll just pop a caffeine pill. And from there, I cook a hot breakfast. I will have eggs many days with some fruit on the side, whether it's a banana or some berries or whatever. And then if I really have time, I may also make about every 2 to 3 days, I'll make a power pack smoothie. And it's got greens, it's got sometimes chia seeds, depending how my weekend was. It's got a lot of greens, coconut milk, unsweetened, organic, organic greens, organic protein. Well, the protein may not be organic, but it's a vegetarian protein. It's not whey, not dairy. And I will put other stuff in there. So I'll smash that smoothie, put berries in there, maybe a banana. Keeps me full, satiated for hours. Now go to work, crush it, and usually hit a workout at the end of the day. Switching into the mornings now, seeing how I like that. I think it's going to help my days go better. But yeah,
I love that. It's sounds like it's very much centered on health and wellness.
yeah, man. And here's the thing: make it easy on yourself. Like that's the biggest thing I've learned from my guests and from doing over 100 interviews has been you need to hack your susceptibilities. So I always, how do you do that? How are you so focus driven? All this stuff, it's habits. It becomes wired. It's natural. It's muscle
Yeah.
memory. So like this thing is 1.5 liters of water. I carry this around, so it makes it easier for me to always have a drink.
Yep.
And once you drink more, you just drink more and more and more. So I try to drink about a gallon of water a day. I almost always do, and if not, it's sometimes 1.5 gallons.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I literally have it right next to me.
Nice. So what's
Literally,
your? Did you hear about like that is glass? Is there a reason you're drinking out of glass?
no specific reason.
It's just more refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, I love that, and I think you're right. It's getting that momentum going in the morning, and just trying to make it as easy as possible on yourself, and don't overthink it. Uh, so finally, what about a book you're currently reading or favorite book?
Currently reading Buy It, Rent It, Profit. And it's a great real estate read. I really am resonating with the author as well. It's a pretty impressive book. I just started it, got it last winter. And as I move into 2020, I'm going to get my first property. So yeah, that's the book I'm reading right now. Buy It, Rent It, Profit.
That's
Graham
awesome.
Stephan, actually, episode 6 on my podcast. If you guys know Graham Stephan, he's a big real estate / YouTube guy. He just passed 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He's episode 6 on my podcast, and we talked about that a little bit. He's the one who recommended that book to me.
That's awesome. And we talked about before the show your desire to get into real estate. So I love that you're reading about it, you're educating yourself. So let's dive quickly into that. What made you want to get into real estate?
It's just a winning. It's a winning thing. It's something that I've seen. And here's the thing: I've seen people win at it who have similar backgrounds to me. So it's that human thing of, okay, they can do it, so can I, and I will. And it's a matter of time. It's a matter of patience. It's a matter of really doing what it takes. If that's holding down a job, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you don't have 2 years of back history to get the lender. There's other ways around it. Like Bigger Pockets launched an episode yesterday with this guy Diego, and he went in on his first deal with cash with his father after realizing he couldn't get lending because he was a dreamer. So he couldn't actually get the loans because of bureaucracy. And so he made it happen anyway as an immigrant. And I was like, dude, this guy is a champ. I mean, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Talk about a dream, American dream right there. I mean, that's making it happen from the bootstraps, and it's possible too. It's not like the rules that we have to live by are not the rules that we are forced to go through or go by can help us and do usually, but they're not anything that should stop you. We don't have to stop.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it goes back to just the compound wealth building effect of real estate. And then also, like you said, the ability to, like, any idea of something that we think is going to hold us back in real estate. And usually it has to do with financing, or has to do with the mindset of thinking something's going to be too big or too many unknowns. And usually, what's that?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that, on top of that, it's those two things are usually very figure outable. If you have the right people in your corner, either mentoring you or people that you can go for advice that have already been a few steps ahead of you.
Evan. Everybody call Evan after the show.
Yeah, Jonathan's my hype man. No, I just love helping people on the real estate journey, and I love that you're going down that path as well, and I can't wait to see where that leads for you.
Thank you, bro. What about you? Why do you do real estate?
That's exactly it. I mean, the impact you can have on communities is big for me. I specifically work in workforce and affordable housing, so that's really important for me. Is not only just building communities, but building quality housing that is going to help a family, like, get on their feet and live their best life. And the benefits of creating and generating long-term wealth, passive income, so that I can go off and, our family can live the life of our dreams and also have the impact through the money that we will generate. So it's all that, man. There's so much more to it. We could do many podcast episodes just on that.
Yeah. What are your tips for me for my situation? Do we have time for that?
Yeah, let's quickly dive into it. So, you and I talked offline. I would say first step with anybody getting started is education. It's listening to Bigger Pockets. It's listening to, even Monumental, other podcasts out there where it's focused on whatever type of real estate you want to go into. I usually recommend people jump into multifamily as soon as possible, because you can be spinning your tires on single family and really not get that scale and momentum until you really get into multiple doors on a property. It's just economies of scale. So I would say the biggest thing would be education and finding a mentor, and getting involved with meetups or different real estate investing groups in your local area, and find people. There's a lot of groups out there. There's a lot of meetups. I recommend for the multifamily side, reading Joe Fairless's Best Ever Apartment Syndication book. I recommend that to any of my coaching clients. It's kind of like an all encompassing book for apartment investing. But I would say you're on the right path, man. It's education first, and then taking action and surrounding yourself by mentors and real estate groups.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, man. I'm glad we did a little quick dive into that. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, what got me into the real estate was, and it is really just to have my cost of living covered, which sounds so simple, because it kind of is from like your perspective or anybody who's been in real estate for any amount of time. But the concept of house hacking is where I want to start, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Just to kind of for my long-term wealth building strategy, learning from people like yourself, from people in my friend group, and mentors. I think I'll be on the right track. It's tough because like you have to decide like this is what I'm gonna do, and I haven't gotten to the point where I'm want to be a developer or be into it like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of, hey, I have like 10 doors, or like I don't need to work, but I do, and I got 10 properties, no one needs to know, that's really cool to me. That's very appealing.
Yeah, exactly. And house hacking is actually how, it's Jeanette and I's first house.
Wow.
It was a house hack. We had Airbnb out of one of the bedrooms that we, took and basically blocked off from the rest of the house, made it, turned a 3-bedroom house into a duplex.
That's awesome.
By doing that, and lived basically for free.
Wow.
So exactly what you're doing is I highly recommend that way to get started, because it's easy. You're already going to have a place for yourself, and you can live rent free.
Yeah, that's genius.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad we got to dive into that. We'll have to get an update from you in a year from now.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, of course.
I love it. Well, Jonathan, honestly, blast having you on. We got to go into some awesome topics. Glad we got to go into your background, the podcast, getting high-level guests, living wide open. So many amazing things today. Is there any place where people can reach out to you or follow you, or anything you want to offer to our listeners today?
Yeah. If you are interested in podcasting, hit me up. Like I'm on Instagram at Heart Healthy Hustle. That's the handle. Just DM me, say, hey, I heard you on Evan show and I resonated with some of your story or whatever. I just want to know how you got your podcast off the ground. Hit me up on there. I'll be happy to answer some questions for you, or you can email me. My personal email is jonathan@thehearthealthyhustle.com. If you like watching video, I have some tutorials on YouTube. And if you have any questions for me, again, about podcasting, personal branding, or just taking action in the direction of your mission or your vision, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, email. I'm happy to help. That's where my heart is at. So just hit me up.
I love it. And guys, make sure to follow him on Instagram. He's got some awesome content. And
let me know you're there and that you came from Evan's show. And just let me know.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. This has been a blast of an episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to share on social media right now. Do whatever, stop whatever you're doing and get on Instagram or wherever, and make sure to share this episode. And guys, with that, have a monumental day.